Good morning and welcome to Fat Cow Farm. Now, as you've been following through on the videos, we've been trying a few different scenarios of how to seed our pastures. And we've tried things, you know, using the flail mower and a few other bits and pieces like that, where, you know, I can say now that when we used the flail mower for seeding, did not germinate. There just wasn't enough soil cover on those seeds for them to germinate. Where we've been doing also the little hand seeder is doing some exercises, you know, that all worked well, but obviously when you've got pastures to reintroduce different species and things like that, it was just not time effective. So what we've done is I've been ringing around a lot of the areas, and we've had an opportunity to borrow a seeder. Now this is the no-till seeder, so this is the disc cutting seeder, and that was the one that we were chasing because we want to, you know, basically minimize as much soil disturbance as we possibly can. And what this little guy here does is it's got, and I'll show you a little bit more about it, but it's got a front cutting disc which sort of opens the soil itself, and then behind it it's got two more discs, and they're sort of on an angle, and they sort of open up the soil a little bit, you know, only 5 or 6 mil, and then a seed drops in that opening. And with all the research that I've done about seeds, most of the seeds that we want here at Fat Cow Farm, which we're chasing the perennials, is that most of them need around about that 5 to 10 mil depth in the soil for them to germinate. And I thought, great, okay, so this little guy here, which is the Cosmo Bully, that does that. And so what I'll do is I'm going to show you how this is working, because I've only got it for about a week, and I've been racing around like a madman trying to see how things are going to work and if this is the right machine for us. And at the moment, it is spot on, absolutely spot on. So over the next while now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this machine is actually doing, this seeder is actually doing, and what I'm focusing on is on the downward side of those keyline cuts that we put in, was that about a month or two ago, because what I'm finding now is that as those keyline cuts are they're starting to work and they're holding moisture. And what's happening is that, you know, now I've got close to around about probably 10 meters, I would have thought, of moisture running through my soils. And, you know, totally, you know, it was meant to happen that way. But wow, you know, like, yes, we've had rain, but I tell you what, you know, I haven't expected such a drastic improvement in such a small period of time. And I suppose that's really where we're going to be. I thought these keyline cuts really should have taken, you know, in my mind, probably about maybe 6 months, maybe a year, to really get the benefits of that moisture coming through the soil. But, you know, it's happened a lot quicker than expected. And so what I'm trying to do now is just experiment with this, the Cosmo Bully no tine, or what am I trying to say here? No-till disc seeder. And what I'm finding is that there was, as a part of the whole process about coming through, you know, it's a new bit of kit, and I just wanted to make sure that this was the right sort of feel for us at Fat Cow Farm. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm on my own today, so I've got a bit of juggling around, trying to work out selfie sticks and things like that. But I'll try my best to show you what the machine is doing, and then I'm going to sort of pass it back over, because, you know, this machine is really blowing me away. All right, so I've got a few things to organise, so I'll come and find you and I'll see you soon. All right, so here what I wanted to show you was what this actual disc seeder is actually doing, and how I'm working it with the keyline cuts. Now, as I said before, the keyline cuts were done a couple of months ago, and they've settled quite well. And you can see that's the keyline cut running through here. So it's, yeah, she settled very, very well. But like I said before, it's with all the rain and moisture and dew and things like that coming through, that's all settled quite well. So what I'm working on is on the downward slope of those keyline cuts. Now you can see where the disc seeder has now been. Now this particular seeder is a 10 disc seeder, and what I'm finding, and as we're sort of passing over the property here at Fat Cow Farm, I'm getting pretty pumped up about this, because what I'm finding is that, you know, I've set the depth now for it's around about 10 mil, and you know, as the ground is undulated and you know, things like that. So what you're finding is that, you know, some areas there's 5 mil, some areas there's nothing, other areas it gets a little bit deeper. But it's almost like a mini, let's call it a mini yeoman's sort of keyline cut on its own. Now, what I find just amazing is that, you know, it's rippling across the pasture quite well, and so the seeds are sort of dropping into those channels that you can see. Now I'm still experimenting. Yes, I am chasing perennial grasses, but what I've got here is a radish, because I wanted to be able to see the seed through these experiments that we were doing, and because the radishes are quite a large seed, rather than, you know, work around millet or plantain or something like that, where the seeds are really small. So what I'm going to try and do here, and this is, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pick this up, but this is one of these keyline cuts, and I'm just going to see if I can try and, you can see there's a little bit of a glistening shine down there. Now, that's water, which is just, like I said before, it's just blowing my mind that what we're finding is that these keyline cuts are just doing exactly what they're meant to be doing. And what we've got here is that, you know, 10, 15, 20 mil below the soil, I've got a truckload of moisture. Now, it's gonna go either way now. So putting in these radishes, they're either going to drown, or in turn, you know, they're going to germinate really, really quickly because of the moisture content, and then with the soil in there. Now, I'm just trying to see if I can find a seed, and I'll have to try and work this out here. There's a better one. All right, now, can you see the little seeds? They're the little brown ones down the very bottom of that trench. All right, and as you can see, like this soil is super, super wet. So what I'm finding is that, you know, in some areas, like I was saying before, these particular seeds needed a 10 mil cover. But, you know, like I said, because we're undulating and things like that, you know, some of these slots are working out to be close to, you know, maybe 10 mil, 20 mil, even 30 mil, depending on how flat the soil is. Now, it's also then giving the opportunity for those seeds to drop in, and they fall straight through into those little trenches, and we can go from there. So what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to jump on the machine and start continuing on, and and then I can show you a larger pass, but then I'll introduce you to the Cosmo Bully, because I think for what the machine is, it's an absolute cracker. Absolute cracker. All right, I'll come and find you, and I'll see you soon. All right, so what I'm hoping that you can see there are some of these little cuts, hey Mo, and where the seeds have been dropped in, but where the discs have cut the ground and the seeds then been dropped in. Now, this is where I think that everything that we've been doing here at Fat Cow Farm is now coming together. So what we've looked at is, we've gone through the process of setting out contours and a little bit of a gradient to the ridges. So now that I can see that everything's sort of coming together, and what I was talking about before was that what we're doing is we're on the downward slope of those keyline cuts that we put in. Now I'm looking through, I understand that it's very hard for you guys to pick this up, but what we're finding is that if we follow the contour with the disc seeder, whatever rain that we have, and this is only, what I was saying before, like I said, some are 25, some are 20, some are 10, some are 5, and then because of the undulation of the ground, you might not even get a cut through one section. But what's happening now is that, and as I've been thinking about it, and when I was seeding yesterday, and thinking about it last night, is that when we do get rain, these little 25mm cuts or 10mm cuts are also going to be acting as like mini little keyline cuts, and they're going to be pushing water back to the ridges for where you want to get set up. So I think that it's really, really important that when you do seed a paddock, because I see guys seeding paddocks every day, and they're just running around. It looks to me that they're just basically following fence lines, and I get that for time efficiencies, especially if you're growing hay or lucerne or something of the sort like that. But if you're looking at pastures, and this is what we want to do. So what I want to do is introduce, over the next 2 to 3 years, introduce 12 to 18 different species of perennial grasses. We will be adding in there some annuals as well, like this radish and things like that. But I really want to start getting this diversity up and running. And so my thought process is that I can do a cut through here on the downward side of these keyline cuts with one particular species. I'd then be able to see where these cuts are, and I would then put maybe something else in, and something else in, something else in, something else in, depending on the season. So, this little guy here is, I think it's about 2.5 meters wide. That gives me one section, and then another 2.5 meters further down, I might introduce, I don't know, maybe the plantain, and then and millet, and then as the seasons come through, we're looking at fescue grasses, we're looking at rye grasses, so that we've got, especially with the perennials, that depending on the season, we'll have this constant feed of different grasses coming through through the paddocks for the cows. Now, we have a lot of native grasses here, and this time of year is really where it's at. Now, I've just had the cows come through here. You can see that it's fairly short, so they won't be back in here for, what's that, another 11, 12 weeks. So what's that, 3 months? So this will give most of the seeds time to start germinating, and hopefully by the time that the cows come through here, we'll start actually seeing, some decent growth. And for them to come through, they'll spend a week here and then move on. So that's as a part of our rotational grazing as well. But I tell you what, it's all really coming together, and I'm amazed that with all the different systems that are out there, with your regenerative farming, your holistic farm management, natural sequence farming and permaculture and everything else, really putting it all into one big basket is really where it's all at, taking the best bits from everything and putting it all into place. So what I'll do now is we'll get a little bit closer to the disc seeder. I'll show you some ins and outs there, and we can go from there. So I'll see you soon. All right, so here we are at the front of the seeder, and as you can see, this is just a standard 3-point hook up to the back of the tractor here. But as you can see, you know, on top here, this is the seed box, and there's 2 different seed boxes on this one. There's what they call a large seed and a small seed. And reading a little bit more about it, it's actually probably not as basic as that. What we have here, this is the front box and this is the back box. Now, as you can see, this is the radishes that I've got running in here. And so with the radishes, I'm just putting it out at around about 5 kilos a hectare, you know, which is basically nothing. But just giving the opportunity for the radishes to be dispersed, I suppose, evenly, and then to start breaking up those soils. It's not like a pasture that you want to really sort of work through. But what I'm going to try and show you here is, now I've got everything sort of closed off, but in this particular box here, and you can sort of open and close to whatever you want to do. This one's really for high volume. So like if you have a seed that is where you've got maybe 50, well, I'm probably not that much, but let's say 30 kilos or something like that per hectare, you would run it in the back one. In the front one, it's a little bit more, I suppose, a little bit more sparse, because what you've got is you've got a gauge and like these charts to work off where the little cogs, and you can see the cogs in there, and they spin, and so they then send the seed down these pipes into the seeder, or into those discs cutters, which are then opening up the soil, and then the seed falls into those little trenches. So it's pretty, you know, like it's pretty full-on bit of kit. You know, I'm pretty pumped up about how it's all really put together as a part of a design concept. As the seed falls into the ground, you can sort of see, if we have a look in here, it's quite open as a part of what the disc is doing, and you can see that there's 2 discs, and they sort of open up the soil a little bit, and that's what the seed falls into. This drum at the back is basically a wheel to move, because it's based on a chain. It's based on a chain, and so what that does is that then starts moving all the cogs and everything else to make the seeds fall down. And then you've got these like little scratch pads, I suppose you can call them, and then if you're running in high grass or something a little bit more sandy, then this then just covers up the trench holes. But because we're using it in grass, it's really sort of, you know, the trench is there and the seed falls in, and then it sort of breaks up a little bit, covers it, but not as much as what I thought it would. But because you're dealing with grasses, and you know, we've got high compact soils here, so you know, everything's sort of staying together. And you've got some adjustments, you know, here on this one here, that adjusts the depth of the actual seeder, how far in and out you want to have the seeds go in. You've got these little turn ones here, and then those ones there are about the spring tension. So it's all based on shock absorber sort of technology, where it pushes in, and if you were to hit something super hard, those discs are going to bounce and sort of go over that, and then the spring will then take over and push it back into the soils again. So it's a pretty neat little bit of kit. But look, yeah. I'm absolutely pumped. To be honest with you, I think we're going to go down the line of acquiring one, and then we can go from there. This, you can see here, that's just a step platform, so you can load into your seed. You load your seed into the hopper at the front. But what I really want to experiment is that the running 2 different types of seed. And that'll be the next sort of phase, so I can start getting a blend, you know, into these pastures. I think that's really going to be the trick. And if I can run something that needs a high volume, like we were talking about before, and then something that's not as high volume, then you've got the opportunity to really put it all together. This little gauge here, that works off that handle, and you can sort of see it there. It's got like a 1 to 8 sort of scenario on that, and that's all about the seed itself. So about the volume of seed running through. So I've got that set on, I think that's on 1.5 for the radishes, and that gives me around about that 5 sort of kilos per hectare. Now you would increase that for extra amount of seed going into the system. All right, so I'm going to do a couple more passes. Oh, no, look, another thing that I thought was quite full on was these see-through cups, and you can see them there, but then the seed, you can see the seeds passing through. So there's a couple of seeds already in there that have been trapped, but you can see that the unit is actually working, and then that your seeds are passing through. I thought that was quite handy, rather than just being black, I suppose. And then these guys are just shut-offs, so I can shut off that particular shoot if I wanted to, or keep it open, whichever it may be. All right. So there we go. I think that, you know, like I was saying before, it's certainly beneficial to have the cows come through, and I can see, look, both sides of the story. It would also be quite good to do a seed of some description, and then have the cows come through to really push those seeds into the soils. But yeah, and you, oh look, there's another point here which we'll have a bit of a look at. You can see the depth of these discs here, and like I said, it all depends on the undulation of the soils. But that one's, you know, where it sits right now is probably close to about 20 mil in. That's the front cutting disc. And then those corrugated tubes there, they're purely just where the seed falls in from the front and rear. So that pipe there is coming from the front box, and that one there is coming from the rear box. So it gives you the opportunity really to actually blend your seeds. But that will need a little bit more trial and error to have that working. You can see the spring shock absorber in the back there, and that just allows that sort of cutting disc to go up and down should you have anything like a rock or stick or whatever it may be that you're running over. All right, I'll get a couple more passes squared away, and I'll come and find you, and I'll see you soon. Alright, so here we are now, finished off into the pastures now, getting rid of all those radishes and getting them into the soils. And like we were saying before, that we were running a very sparse sort of collation on those radishes. The manufacturer recommended, like we were saying before, was around about those sort of 5 kilos a hectare. So I finished all that off, and we'll give this thing a bit of a clean up and whatnot. I've got some more seed that I'm going to pick up tomorrow, and sort of see what I can do about getting a few things squared away, because we've got some rain coming, which is a bit of a bonus. But really get those sort of seeds germinated. So I think that's really going to be one of the tricks, is that either we seed pre-rain or post-rain. So we've got a lot of that like a moist sort of soil content, which gives those seeds pretty much the best chance that they have. So all about the Cosmo Bully, and getting your pastures and starting to diversify with your sort of species in your paddocks. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.